Multi-platinum recording artist and actor JoJo joins the show today. She's talking about her infamous record deal being Taylor's version before Taylor's version, overcoming trauma and her family's history with addiction, and more. If you need a pep talk about becoming the most authentic version of you, this is it. What do you do, and why is it so important?
Oh, I do different things in entertainment mostly. I'm a singer, actress, author, songwriter, human being and doing. And why is it important? Because everybody and what everybody does is important. What I do is no more or less important than what anybody else does.
I love it. Couldn't agree more. Is there a song or an album that made you go, oh yeah, I want to do that?
I mean, I've been performing since I was like
a baby,
2 years old. So I don't remember one specific thing because I've always been like, I want to do that. I want to say maybe the Bodyguard soundtrack.
The Whitney Houston.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that might be the first thing that like really affected me, but it's hard to say what was the first thing.
Was there like a musical that made you go, ooh, I want to also do theater at the same time? Or were you doing that really early too?
I was doing that since I was 6.
Yeah. Super early. Yeah, I think my first acting job was when I was like 5. And then I was like, oh, this is lovely.
Yeah.
This is so fun.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah. And it's just like, once you get it's like a drug. Once you get a hit of it, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to say like the bug bit me. So somebody said that and I'm like, yeah, that is what it's like. You know, you just get infected with this desire, this thing that just kind of propels you, this love. You know, I just really dug it. The first thing I ever did was The Who's Tommy. And then I was like, I love this.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember your life before the record deal?
Yeah.
What was that experience for you?
I was a kid.
Yeah. A literal kid.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my life was performing and trying to get to that place. So by the time I was 12 and I signed the contract, it was like, oh yeah, I've worked my whole life for this dream and now I'm living my dream.
My whole 12 years of my life?
Exactly, yeah.
Was that a feeling of like, oh, I've made it now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get a record deal, you're so young, and then it feels like they kneecap you. And that has to feel so, I don't know how it feels. But tell me a bit about like what that was like, both feeling like, oh my gosh, my career's starting, and then maybe, oh, it's not going the way I planned. And then how does your money and your idea of where you're heading, how does that experience affect that too?
Well, when I signed my first contract, I was 12 years old. So it was ratified by the state of New York. It had a guardian ad litem like appointed to it. And my mom did the absolute best she could with the limited information that she had about how to navigate the industry because she was cleaning houses for a living and was a soloist at our Catholic church. She raised me on $10,000 a year. I don't know how she did it.
Yeah, wow.
She was a single mother raising a daughter by herself. My dad was in the throes of his own addiction. My mom was dealing with her own struggles. And so when I had a lot of success really early on, my first single going #1 at 13, that was like, for me, it was like, wow, my dreams are coming true. It was great. I loved to work. And I always felt like maybe this gift that I was given would be a way to a different life.
Yes.
Because people were always telling me that you're going to be rich and famous. And I'm like, cool. Because I'm pretty sure we're poor. Like
that might be nice.
Yeah. It sounds like great. If I can do something to help my family, like I want to, and I love this, and people tell me I'm good at it. So that sounds like a great combination of things.
Right.
And then, had great success with the first album, great success with the second album. Then things started to fall apart as far as on the back end for my label. The things that they were going through affected me because I was signed to them contractually. Right. So you can't get out of whatever they're going through.
Yep.
And I've spoken about this like extensively over the past 15 years. So I don't want to go into it too much. And not everybody has followed my career or knows anything about that. But like my fans really, really helped to keep me going through that time. I was like telling them a little bit about it on MySpace because that's where we were at the time as far as social media.
Well, and you're probably all involved legally too. So it's like, how much can I say?
How much can I say?
Transparent can I be?
I was being told not to say anything. But then I'm like.
But then somebody else is controlling your story.
And I didn't even care at that point. I just wanted out.
Yeah.
When I ended up, suing just to get out of that, I didn't even sue for damages. It wasn't anything. It was just that I didn't legally own my voice, and they weren't putting out new material on me, or they kept losing distribution. It was just a shit show for a minute.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, I was like, oh, this is the definition of insanity. Like, I keep trying to make things work. Yeah. It's just not working. So I need to remove myself from the situation, as sad as that is, because the people I was involved with were like family to me. So I never wanted to be like that.
I think most of the people listening didn't have the experience of getting a record deal, right? And then it not working out. But I think every single woman has an experience of being in a situation that she cannot get out of. And then that feeling of, gosh, I wish I had more money or more power or more influence.
Yes.
So is that the experience of just like, wow, I'm stuck and I thought I'd have enough money to be able to get myself out of this?
That's the thing, I think, that especially because my mom and I came into this with no leverage. And I was going to put that in quotes, but like, that's actually true.
Right.
Because when you're signing to a production company or a major label, or in my case, both, like there were 3 different things. It was a production company, then the smaller label, then the major label distribution.
Yeah.
And so there's all these checks and balances and different hoops to jump through, and people.
And they know a lot and you know very little.
We knew nothing. All I knew was that, you know, we loved music and it was a very like pure thing, but they knew a lot and they had all the money. They opened the budgets, they closed the budgets. This is not good. This is not bad. Like, I'm not saying, how dare they do that? What I'm saying is it's about ownership. And because they had the money, then it warrants them saying, that's why you no longer own your voice. You have this voice. We want it.
Yeah.
And that's what's so interesting. And because we had no leverage, no financial leverage, no success in the marketplace, no me being on a Disney show or a Nickelodeon show and being able to leverage the success of that, or an acting career or something like that, we weren't able to be like, that profit share doesn't sound right, or owning her voice, so we need to get your approval to do anything doesn't. We didn't know.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot with, even when I was able to leave a relationship that just didn't feel good for me. And I owned a place, but because I thought it was the right thing, I moved into his place that he didn't own, because I was like, I want to show him that I trust and that he's the man and blah, blah, blah. And as soon as that shit went to flames, I'm like, I'm out. I'm out. I had already rented the place that I owned, and I was like, I'm going to find a rental to just get. And it was the financial freedom that I had that allowed me to leave. And not most, but some women have children, and they're working multiple jobs, and they still wouldn't be able to do that. And I think about just the freedom that like being okay financially has afforded me, and even to be an independent artist now. I'm rambling, but it's I think about that a lot.
That's the entire mission of our work.
Exactly.
Because when you have money, you have options. And when you don't have money, you don't have any options.
And that's how I started out in the game. I am so grateful for the people that believed in me, that did invest in me, that gave me the opportunity, that put my first 2 albums together and everything. And then I just continued to learn from them and what to do and what not to do.
Did you feel like a commodity?
I mean, I was a commodity. That's what it is. It's art and commerce. And did I feel like it? I don't know. And I don't know if I cared.
Okay. I'm just more thinking of like, let me ask this in a different way, and you can answer it or you can tell me no. But did you feel like you were being taken advantage of? Or was this just the way it worked?
I didn't really feel like I was being taken advantage of. It was a mutual thing where I wanted their guidance and the access, and I wanted their money.
The platform, hopefully.
The platform.
Yeah.
There's a system, and there's different departments at the label that we're all working in beautiful harmony together. That's what makes an artist successful. That's what launched my career, is a great publicity department, marketing, radio, A&R, other departments that I'm forgetting, and digital. And it's all those things coming together that make for a success, whether it's a one single or an album or, a long career.
Yeah.
It takes that. And so, I don't know. I was kind of like, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah. My last question about this part of your life is that you were like Taylor's version before Taylor, which is you went back and you recorded all of your original albums. First of all, how did that feel? And how necessary did that feel in order for you to do what you wanted to do, but also like re-own that incredible work you had done?
So the reason for that was because the label that I was signed to didn't do a deal with the streaming services.
Yeah.
So Spotify, other DSPs they didn't have my first 2 albums on them. They didn't have any of the artists that were on that label's album. So including Aaliyah, who can't advocate for herself because she's not here anymore.
Yep.
And I was angry, and I felt like, once again, like a victim of circumstances that I wasn't in control of. And I was tired of it. And I was tired of my fans being like, why can't I listen to your first 2 albums? Like, Are you ashamed? Or like, you took them off? I'm like, I didn't take them off. I don't own them.
Right. Well,
I can't do anything with them.
I remember trying to find them. And I think it was like, you had to go to eBay. Or like,
yeah.
you had to go to eBay to find them.
YouTube, eBay, they weren't available to stream.
Yeah.
So, and it was like that for a couple years. So my manager at the time came up with this great idea about, you could cover your songs. We could recreate them with, your friends who are great producers and musicians. You could make them as close to the original version as you want. And there was no precedent for this. I didn't have an example to look to be like, oh yeah, this is how you do it. I was very scared, and I was like, this could be so whack, and people could be like, oh, are you obsessed with your old shit? Like, I'm not. But it was just like, you're not gonna extinguish this career that I've, built.
Also, they're banger songs. Like, they're bangers back then, they're bangers now.
It was like, we're missing out on being able to make money from it. And for the creators that created these songs, the producers, the writers, it was just so maddening. So I creatively, we found a solution and a loophole. And that was probably the first thing I did that really felt empowering and like, okay, there are creative solutions. And that was the first thing that I released on my own label, Clover Music. And I actually presented it to my major label distributor at the time. I had done a deal shortly before that. Yeah. And they weren't interested in profit sharing that. And I'm so glad that they weren't, because it is a consistent, great thing in my life that quarterly I see
a check for.
Exactly. So I'm so grateful. And it actually taught me a lot about, I don't need to offer all projects to any, to a label partner or whatever. Like, it was really educational just in that. I'm like, oh, y'all don't want it? That's actually better. Yeah. I thought I was like doing the right thing, but so it taught me a lesson.
Do you know Queen Herbie, Amy?
Yeah, I love her.
Okay, so she's a friend of mine. She came on the show as well.
So brilliant.
She's so good. So one of the things we talked about is going independent from a label and the access that gives you, but also all of the things that you then have to do yourself. So she was talking like, if I want a single to chart right now, I got to blow myself up on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, because there's no marketing behind me. So what have you found? You mentioned, okay, this is a huge pro. I get a check. No one has to take a cut of it. What are the pros of being in, that space of being independent, and what are the cons of that?
I'm so grateful that I have a 20-year career under my belt, because I just want to start off by saying that, because it must be really hard to break as an artist today, because there's I thought it was 10,000 songs per day. It's 100,000 songs per day that are uploaded on digital streaming platforms. So there is more music and noise to cut through than ever.
And competition.
Exactly. There are so many pros to being independent, especially when you have a fan base that you've nurtured and that has grown with you, and
who trusts you,
that continue to join a part of the community, and that trust is there, and that recognition is there. Even nostalgia, whatever. So there's that, and then when you have some leverage, and when you have some financial cushion from other things that you've done, from acting or partnerships or sponsorship, whatever it is,
a book,
right? And so I would say that the freedom, the flexibility is great, and also like the accountability that you have to have. Like, you need to be all in. You need to be balls to the wall as an independent artist, and you really should be as an artist at a label too, because I think that'll keep them excited and keep things moving forward. So I think that a lot more is on you creatively, but I think that's good. I think it's good for us to need to be lit from within and kind of lead that charge, because at least for me, starting out so young with different departments at a label, I deferred to other people to know what's best for me, as opposed to being like self-guided.
Yes.
And of course, outsourcing to people where like, oh, you're great at choreography. Can we work together? Or you're really good with digital stuff, or you take beautiful photos or whatever. But I think it's just nice to... There's pros and cons with everything. I don't really, as far as...
No, but there's so many instances I have in my own life too. Exact same thing where it's like, okay, they're professionals at this, so they should know. And the entire time my gut's going, no, that's not how we should do it though.
Totally.
And then I handed control to them because they should know how to do it. And I'm putting that in quotes. And then they screw me over. And I'm like, oh, I knew the whole time.
And it's not that... they're probably well-meaning people.
Most definitely. But they don't know me and my audience as well as I do.
Or what's going to be right for you, what you can live with.
Yep.
And I understand now that I'm older, like I think about the reputation that some divas got. Like I think of Madonna or Mariah or whatever, and people were like, people have said, oh, they're bitches or they're this or that.
Difficult to work with.
Difficult to work with. They know what they want. And after many, many years of being like, no, it's okay, or blah, 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 then all of a sudden you might get a reputation of like, she's difficult to work with. But I'm starting to embrace that it's okay. If I do develop a reputation of like being, you have
standards, you have boundaries.
Really own that. Yeah.
Totally.
So thank God for getting older, because you just care less.
Well, it's also, those are the traits that we celebrate in men. They're decisive. They know what they want. They're leaders, right? Yeah. It's the double standard with women.
It is.
So you wrote a book, New York Times bestseller, no big deal.
Well, you too.
Me too.
So come on.
It's both of us. It's very exciting. You go into everything from your origins in music to your life at home. And you grew up with parents who both identify as addicts. Can you share with me a little bit more about your story with that and your struggle with mental health too, and how that's impacted the kind of work you do today and want to continue to do?
Yes. Yeah. So the book is called Over the Influence, which sounds like it's about sobriety, but in a sense, I mean, not in a sense. What it is that my developing brain was very much influenced by being a part of a system, an industry from a really young age, and also growing up with the foundation of going to AA meetings with mostly my mom and seeing people share their deepest, darkest, most, difficult experiences and trying to climb their way up and pivot and make a new way for themselves at any age. And that is what has inspired my journey. And I think my desire to be transparent and connect with people in a different way outside of music through this book. I got my mom's blessing to talk about her, struggles. And because my story is her story, is our story. Yeah. She managed me from, like 6 years old to 17. And there was a lot of ups and downs. She was really struggling with her mental health for a long time. And I took that on as my responsibility. Her happiness, I felt like, whether I consciously felt it or not, I definitely took it on as like,
that's my job.
That's my job. Yeah. And then my dad passed away from his addiction almost 10 years ago.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. And so I feel as though me not just surviving, but thriving is also to honor my dad and addicts who didn't get the chance to live fully or pivot or, he was just 60 years old. And I'm about to get my period, so I'm particularly emotional.
No, you're making me cry a little bit. We're okay.
And I was very judgmental of my parents because I'm like, why do you still call yourselves addicts? Like they'd go through years where they weren't using or weren't drinking or whatever. And I'm like, you're not anymore or whatever. But it's because it's a spirit of, Dr. Gabor Mate describes the hungry ghost, which I think is a Buddhist idea, where it's like this hungry ghost inside of us that just like Pac-Man, just these big, huge mouths and, or little tiny mouths and big bellies, I forget. And they're just gobbling up and they're never full. And that is what this spirit of addiction or of unhappiness and depression can feel like. And so at a certain point in my 20s, I'm like, oh, I'm no better than them. I judged them harshly, but I'm acting like an addict in different ways. And for me, I didn't discriminate. Could be substances, it could be relationships, adulation, stimulation, sex, food.
Yeah.
I've experimented with numbing out through all of them. So that's what this book kind of speaks to, is my journey through that. And it's not like, oh, well, I'm on the other side of it now, but it's just like, this is my experience so far.
Does it feel like you're breaking like generational curses and you being able to move through this?
I do want to believe that.
Yeah.
And that's why I really wanted to do your podcast as well, because there's such a mindset of, sometimes when I hear people speak like this, it's like a little, but there is a thing as a poverty mindset.
No, I agree with that.
And that has been something that's been a part of a lot of for some of my family. It's been, not believing that they can have nice things, or that they can,
or that they deserve that
they deserve.
Money. Yeah.
Yeah. Or that money is evil.
Mm-hmm.
And that people
we talk about it a lot on this show.
People with it are evil.
Yeah.
And
money has no moral value. It's what you do with it.
Whew. And I really embodied that, and really maybe said that, no, I didn't think that, but deep down I really did, because it was really ingrained in me.
Well, it's easy when you don't grow up with a lot to view anybody with money as the reason that you're not doing well. That's so easy.
Yes. Looking externally, and look, there are systems that are stacked against,
Absolutely.
And there is socioeconomic craziness, and there's so many issues that.
And there's shitty rich people.
And there are lots of shitty rich people.
So it's very easy to look and go, oh my gosh. Okay, I don't want that, because money makes you a bad person. When you have money, that's when you turn evil. And it's like, no, money is a stack of government issued paper.
So I want to believe that there's different things that I'm not going to instill in if I have children, that I will not bring that it ends with me.
Yeah.
Colleen Hoover, it ends with us, whatever. Shit. Yeah.
Yeah. When you talk about going through the different versions of numbing for you, what was the financial impact of that?
That's a great question. I feel as though I was asleep for a long time inside myself, hence the numbing, overdoing things, drinking to excess, eating to excess, being in a little love cocoon where you just get high and be in bed all day and stuff. I went through different periods, particularly in my 20s, where I was just so deeply depressed because I was in a lawsuit. It looked like there was no end in sight. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. So I have a lot of compassion, and I discovered that through writing this book, that I was like, oh, I wish me today could sit with younger me and just be like, it gets better.
Yeah.
But I think the financial result of that was probably harming some opportunities that I had to make money, to make good connections. I think it probably hindered my acting career. I think that I could have taken that more. I wish I had the emotional and spiritual energy to apply myself when I could have done more at that time.
Yeah.
I now realize that I just couldn't.
You were in survival mode.
I was in survival mode. I was not okay.
Yep.
My dad was overdosing, and my mom was up and down, and I was not okay.
Yeah.
And because I felt the weight of those things, and I didn't feel supported in my career, and I just didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But there was definitely things that happened as a result of that. And I'm just grateful that now I believe that it's not too late to wake up.
Yeah.
And to say, that's fine. And not be embarrassed by the windows that you couldn't see that maybe you could open. That now I'd be like, oh, that's a window. Or someone's giving me an outstretched hand. I'll take the hand.
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Check that out. That sounds great.
Yeah.
I had so much, my life, it felt so hard. Everything felt so hard.
Well, and then probably the pride of, I got to do this myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just trying, I'm really actively growing out of that. Like it doesn't, and I live in New York is a hard place to live.
Yeah.
Just meaning like, I don't know, the subway is crazy and people are out here.
They're going to scream at you.
They're going to scream at you.
All the time.
Yeah. So it's a different season though.
Yeah, most definitely. You shared in this article, quote, I spent so much of my 20s and teens in utter confusion and in so much pain. There was so much turmoil and feelings of being alone. I remember always feeling so other. And I realized that I felt that way from a very young age. And you shared that theater was one of the ways you were able to feel less alone. Do you still feel that now?
I do feel that way, yeah. I think that, you said you did theater.
So I majored in theater in college.
Wow.
Was in at least 2-3 shows a year my entire life growing up.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then started singing when I was 2.
Wow.
Played piano. Yeah. This was the plan for my life. And then I had well-meaning parents, one of whom is kind enough to be here, which thank you for allowing Dad into the studio.
Oh my God, of course.
But we had this conversation that was just like very much like, okay, so are you going to go try to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And I had friends who were living in New York and who were auditioning. And I was just like, I don't know if I have that in me. The like rejection, fine, but the constant like worrying about how I was going to pay rent, wondering if I was going to get a job, what job was that going to look like? And I don't know if I had that in me.
I hear that. And I don't know if I would have had that in me.
Yeah.
When I got the opportunity to be on Broadway for the first time a couple years ago.
Playing Moulin Rouge?
Yeah, playing Satine in Moulin Rouge. I felt a sense of guilt or like imposter syndrome because of what you just described, because of a lot of people that worked their way up.
Broadway especially is just exactly, like you're auditioning sometimes for 8 years.
So I didn't have that same process, but then I had to be like, I have been literally working my whole life. Like
this was not stunt casting, everybody.
Maybe I don't need to feel as if, people are looking at me sideways or whatever. And maybe some people were, but that's really none of my business. It is what it is.
Let them.
Because I came in deeply prepared, deeply respectful and reverent of like the opportunity. And I like went through the script and I made notes on everything. And I was like, and I came in with a perspective and I was like, this is what I have to offer. And I would love to work with you and see what we can do together. So it was not like I was just like, I'm just going to show up and sing the way, and like, I don't know. But to answer your original question.
No, you're fine.
I think that the community of particularly here on Broadway, because I haven't performed on the West End and like I haven't done a musical theater touring production or something, but on Broadway, there is such a community vibe. In my experience, because people are working so hard and it is so stressful on the body, mind, spirit, like 8 shows a week.
8 shows a week.
The Satine track has 7 shows. And so I was able to take 1 show off, but that's 5 days a week or 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And I was doing 2 shows on Wednesday, 2 shows on Saturday, and we're all in it together. What I loved was I loved showing up at the same place every day. I hadn't had that experience because my job has been being JoJo and getting to travel the world and being, I had, until the pandemic, I had never really been planted in a place for months, actually, since I was like 13. And I was like, oh, being planted is really cool.
It's really nice.
And I love showing up and getting to see the same people. I loved the people that worked behind the scenes and the people that were at the ticket office and will call and the ushers. And I loved the people that sold the merch and I loved the swings and the alternates. And it was so fun. And I loved people coming into my room and being a safe space. And people were safe spaces for me. And I asked, I'm thinking of like Bahia, who's been a part of the production for a long time. And she's a phenomenal dancer, performer. And she's been doing it for so long. And she would teach us, like wellness tidbits. I'm like, how do you look the way you do? And how do you
keep the energy?
How do you keep the energy? Yeah. So people are just sharing tips and tricks and not being gatekeepy. And I just really love it. And that's what prompted me to move to New York. Just how I fell in love with it through that experience.
I miss theater so much. That's the thing I want to tell people who are like, sports teaches teamwork. And I'm like, 100% yes.
Yeah.
You know what teaches teamwork? Being in a production. Someone drops a line, that's your responsibility to pick it up.
That is such a good
Someone
point.
doesn't make their cue, that's your responsibility to figure out how you all are getting off stage.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
Someone's sick? Okay, understudy.
Yeah.
Guess what? Swing. Here we go.
And like, we all want to make the other look good because it's good for the entirety. You're so right about that. And I didn't grow up doing sports or, I did theater as a kid, but then very quickly I went down a different path.
Right.
And I think had I not had success so early on, I might have moved to New York and taken more of a theater like focus because I always loved it from a young age.
Well, and it's so interesting too. You're exactly right. Where it's like you had a solo career. Now, backing band, sure, but like you had a solo career, and this is probably the first time. Maybe being in a cast, like in a movie, is maybe similar, but like this is the first time it is a collective experience. And it is not really about your own performance. It's about everybody's performance.
That was really healing, knowing that the show would go on without me, that I'm not financially responsible for whatever happens. Like if, I can get sick and someone amazing is going to go on as Satine.
I don't
Her
have
costume
to
is
sing
ready.
through laryngitis.
I don't have to. I might.
Yeah.
But I don't have to. I think that was like very healing for me because it's just so scary. You don't want to develop a bad reputation in general, whether it's in theater or as a solo performer. But I never took tour support from a label either. So I always put up the finances for any tour that I've done over the years, except for maybe my first album. But then from there, just learned that you don't want a profit share. Because recouping and all that stuff and percentages on top. Sure.
I think that's interesting for someone who is not in that life. And you're about to go back on tour again, which shameless plug, go see her. I will go see you.
We start February 22nd in Nashville and end May 10th in Miami. So come see me.
I love it. So why would you do it yourself versus a label back tour?
So when I was in the major label system, I chose not to take tour support from the label because they would like charge interest to that. They'd front you money up front, just like a publishing company or a record label would, an advance or something. And then you'd use that. And I hope I'm speaking about this correctly.
You are.
So then, it's just like, if you are confident that people will show up and that people want to wear your merch and, and all that, then you can just kind of go out on a limb. And if you have some money set aside for that, you can stand to walk home with more if you're not giving it back plus more to someone else.
Right.
And that's just a privilege, I guess, of having a little bit, because I've toured in the past for a long time, just being able to be like, you know what? I'm going to gamble on myself. I'm going to bet that this is going to go okay.
I dated a touring musician for a bit, and he works with a musician, I'll tell you offline, who had signed with a label, and they went on their first big splashy tour. And then the label halfway through the tour was kind of like, hey, so this isn't working out. And they were staying in, the nice hotels and everything. And then it was kind of like, she got dropped from her label, but her label paid her out, which is like, what? I know. Apparently not very normal, but was just like, don't even worry about it. And he was like, but everything changed where it was like, Ritz-Carlton, nice hotels, everything. And then it was like, no, well, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you definitely learn, I will say that like when you are seeing itemized breakdown of what you're spending and what you could be spending and you're like, oh my God.
The crew, the band, the pyrotechnics, if you're doing that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Then you start to think about what is really meaningful, what's really important.
Right.
What will, how do I grow this show and how do I make people how do we have a good time? And how do we make this impactful? But how do I not be in the red?
Right.
And I'm not staying at the Ritz-Carlton when I'm on tour because I'm putting up like 12 people. And so some artists, especially with bigger tours and stuff, they'll stay at one place and their band will stay at another place. And that is totally understandable, especially when you're traveling with like tons of people and you have multiple buses.
Right.
But you just learned a lot over the years about what is impactful, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's worth the money,
What's worth the money. But I will say that like, I think about someone like Victoria Monet, who really invested so much into her artistry, her live show, her visuals. And I imagine used some of the money that she had made from being a very successful songwriter and been able to sow into her solo career. And I just think that's a great example of it really being worth it to, do great visuals and put on amazing top-notch performances and all that. And it's really, rehearsal is really expensive.
Yeah.
Renting spaces, having the right audio, having the right people to take out on the road.
Paying for all those people to show up at rehearsal multiple times.
Yes. Whether you're having them on retainer or you're incentivizing them with the right, check to show up. Yeah, it's something you don't really think about until you're in it.
Well, it's almost like for me hiring a team, right? Because you have to figure out, okay, if I hire more junior members, well, they're cheaper, right? But I have to do more work. Versus if I hire somebody who's going to show up and they're incredible, right? It's like the backing vocalist that's, incredible. She's going to cost a lot, as she should.
Yes.
And so it's like you have to make that trade-off, just like you're building any sort of business. When do I have the time and when am I willing to invest in somebody versus when is it like, okay, I just need somebody who can come in, who is just seasoned, and I'll figure out how to pay what they cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Such a good point.
Okay, Satine.
Yeah.
Vocally. Physically, so demanding. I did not see you in the role. I did see the original Broadway cast right before the pandemic. Because Moulin Rouge is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh my God.
So I flew myself out and I didn't rush it. I bought a ticket and I just cried the whole time. But so demanding. I remember you posting a video of you prepping and just like, I'm watching all of these Broadway performers. Like, you are athletes, and anybody who says differently is just so wrong. So what is the difference between prepping for Broadway versus prepping for a tour? Like physically, emotionally, all of that.
I will say that preparing for Broadway changed my life, and I'll probably never go back to being the way I was before.
Really? Tell me more.
Well, I really wanted to work on my vocal placement and finding more ease and more openness. I needed to. My life depended on it, actually. My career depended on it. And I just needed to be honest with myself. So I've been working for a couple years with different vocal coaches because I didn't grow up with training. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of throwing myself against the wall, vocally, and damaging myself. And over the past few years, been working with different people and really trying to just, find more ease. So using different vowels in working on placement, in not working as hard, not pushing, finding more opening and working on my mix more, all these different things. And it's really having a practice of warming up and cooling down before the shows. Since I was 15, probably, I've been training in the gym and doing different things. But I also was like, I want this to feel easy. That's what I learned when I was younger. You train hard, so then what you do is easy. Yeah. Whether it's on tour, theater, whatever. So I really applied that to getting ready for Broadway. And while I was in the show, I would work out a few days a week because I just wanted it to feel easy. I didn't want to be winded, all that stuff. So as I'm preparing for tour right now, I think I'm taking it up even a notch because as I get older too, I just don't want to go backwards. I want to see what want to see what I'm capable of. I don't want to die with my my potential still in me. So I want to see I want to see what I got. So that's what I'm vocally getting in this swing of things and physically getting there and wanting to dance more and just explore and have fun.
Well, you can't be present as an actor unless you've done all that work because you cannot be there with your scene partner. You cannot be there with the cast. You cannot interact with the audience, even if there is no breaking of the wall. You can't do that unless everything feels easy.
That's what I learned. I hadn't played a role like Satine ever. And this is a grown-ass woman who's a sex worker who has peeled her way out of poverty and being pimped out by her father on the streets at 13 years old. And, she had a lot going on. And she also was just divine and magnetic and
was also singing Katy Perry songs.
And is singing Katy Perry songs. So it's wild. But what you said is so true. And I, as Joanna, would not have felt okay to be going toe to toe with Derek Klena or Aaron Tveit or anybody else a part of that cast if I didn't know the script in and out and I didn't know everything that was going on and I wasn't over prepared.
And you didn't know your body could handle it. Yeah, totally.
That's what I learned is that I need to over prepare to be comfortable for something. And I didn't accept that about myself for a long time because I'm like, I should just be able to improv and wing it. Not in theater, but just like in general, like if I'm
really talented, then it should just be. If I'm really
talented, right. Because I have friends who are jazz musicians who, improv is the name of the game. And they're like, they know the Great American Songbook. But that's the thing. They are prepared because they know it in and out.
So they can improvise correctly.
When you know it in and out.
It's the same thing like, a sketch performer or an improv performer, right? People think, oh, you're just naturally funny. It's like, no, you go to class.
Right.
You go to class to understand how to play off somebody and how to yes and all of the complex things. Yeah. I mean, I know every audition I ever showed up for that I was like legitimately nervous is because I didn't know my material.
Right.
Every single one. It was like, I learned that monologue 3 days ago. Like, that's every single time. And I was always a little nervous because you're never going to remove that. But at least I knew, okay, I'm not going to forget. So that's one less thing I have to worry about.
Yeah.
So I can worry about being present. I don't have to worry about, am I going to forget 3 lines in what the next line is?
So real. Yeah. And I think back to, when I felt the most nervous. And it's because I'm like, if I'm honest with myself.
I haven't sunk through this enough. I haven't,
Yeah. I can't sink into it because I'm not confident.
Yep. Is there a show that you're like, I must do that before I die?
I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Okay. I'm going off script. I'm curious.
No,
like
that's
excited.
Okay.
Because I have certain roles where I'm like, oh, maybe.
I am really, really excited to originate a role. And so
I know we can't talk about it, but I'm really excited for you.
I really hope, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but I'm very excited.
Yeah. Financially, talk to me about a Broadway paycheck versus other things. Like, is it nice to have the steady paycheck? Is it nice to know?
Yeah, I've never had a steady paycheck.
Yeah,
really.
Well, to your point, you're like, I'm getting paid even if I'm sick.
No.
To a degree.
To a degree. You don't get paid when you don't show up.
Right.
And I'm like, that's cool. It's you learn. Not that I needed to learn that. I'm like, I always want to show up. But yes, having the steady thing. My business manager, who I've worked with for a long time, he was happy about it. He's
sure he was. He was like, yay, I get more money
Joe,
too.
This is good. Well, just like he likes to see that like this is cool, as opposed to just be like, here's this random gig and this or this tour or this thing,
or this
blah,
movie,
blah, blah, this movie, and this book, whatever. And I appreciated that. I hadn't had that kind of the comfort of that stability, even for me, who was starring in a Broadway musical and was coming in with a name and everything. I think people might think that I was making more than I was. You still really need to love this.
Oh yeah,
you still really need to love it because it's not like you're running to the bank and laughing all the way to the bank or something like that.
Yeah, Anthony Ramos gave an interview recently where, different story. He was not the name he was yet, but talking about the first run of Hamilton, both at the Public and then going to Broadway, he's just like, yeah, you're doing this because you love it, not because you want to make money. He was not making, and the whole cast was not making a lot of money. And I think that's every show.
It is so much hard work. And one of my good friends, Jasmine Cephas Jones, was in Hamilton as well, an OBC and original Broadway cast. I'm like, what is that? It sounds like OBGYN, but no. Original Broadway cast. And
also drama for both of us to mention both of those.
Well,
two
that's why I wanted to bring up my girl.
No, you should bring her up instead.
It's just really, really fascinating to talk, to be friends with somebody who, developed something from the ground up and to see it still take, and then there's all these different productions of the thing that you originated. And it's
they were the first ones, as far as I know, to actually get a cut, which is incredible.
Yeah, from what I understand, Leslie Odom Jr., I think, kind of brought people together to ask for, we were a part of the development of this, we should make
Yep. Have you seen him in concert, by the way?
Mm-mm.
I highly recommend it. I've seen him 3 times.
Yeah, I hear he's amazing.
His whole band, too. His band is a jazz band.
Nice.
And then he performed the past couple times I've seen him with the symphony. So it's the symphony in the back. And then the jazz. And it's just, the musicians are just insane. And then his vocals are just butter.
Yeah, he is so dope.
I think one of my favorite, for me, I so appreciate vocalists that don't oversing things.
Yeah, me too.
It's just like, no, he just...
Choices.
There's some, exactly. There's some riffs, there's some fun stuff, but he's just
right in there,
singing it straight, and it's right in the pocket, and it's so good.
Yeah, I really love that.
I just thought you meant Lynn, and I was like, are you talking about Lynn? What surprised you the most about working on Broadway or working in theater?
There are many things I think, but maybe the camaraderie probably surprised me the most because I was scared going into it, like as an outsider. And but I was just so nicely embraced and held and supported and shown the ropes, and that was cool. And then also how easy it is to get sick because my immune system was rocking. I was actually like really strong and good. But then I was like, one person would get sick, and then another person would get sick, and then I'd get sick, and then like you're making out on stage, and then it's like, oh no, that person was sick, or they have someone at home who's sick, and then it was just like a petri dish.
Well, I think Aaron was the first one to get COVID in March too. I remember like that was the whole controversy, and not controversy for his, wasn't his fault, but I think he was the first one to be like, I think I have this thing that everybody's freaking out about. Yeah.
It's just really hard in a shared space like that when everybody's breathing on each other and sweating on each other and having to kiss on stage or something. And it's just kind of unavoidable.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're all sharing a backstage area and everything too. Yeah. Do you feel like Satine parallels your life at all?
I think that her being a performer from such a young age and having a public persona and a private persona just parallels most performers, probably. But so maybe in that sense, but the way that I try to live my life now is like more integrated and more of a, I live an artistic life. Like I live a creative life, and I try to like have more ease with that. And I like to like ramp up certain parts of my personality for different, you know, if I'm on stage, I might embody different things, but I don't want to be so like fragmented. And I think that we do that. We compartmentalize out of trauma and protection a lot of times. And it's fine for a lot of people. I just don't really want to right now.
Yeah.
So Satine had to survive. She was in survival mode.
Yeah.
And then she was dying from consumption.
Right.
Tuberculosis. And
she just wants to be a star.
She just wanted to be a star, and she didn't think that love was available to her. There were things that I related to with that, like loving someone, but thinking that it wasn't savvy to be with them because they can't take care of you, or like, and you don't come from money, and you're like, it's probably smarter for me.
It's a financial decision. It's not an emotional one.
She was making a financial decision to be with the Duke, and I sometimes wish that I dated more financially savvy in the past, you know what I mean? Because I was just like, I really just led with my heart so much. But there were things where she, you know, hurt somebody. There were things I related to.
Yeah. Your single Porcelain is been on my on repeat Spotify playlist for like 3 months, and it's so good.
Thank you.
You have this line, I had to break it and rearrange it, and then it turned into a beautiful mosaic. That seems like your life. Is that it?
I think it's a lot of us, you know. At any point we can say, I really don't like the way I'm framing my life. I really don't like the story. I don't like this narrative.
Yeah.
I don't like the way I'm looking at myself or looking at the world. And I had been so numb to my feelings for so long, which is why I was overdoing things for so long and needing to numb out and all that. And I just didn't allow myself to break because I was like, strong people don't break.
Yeah.
If anything, I'm strong. If anything, I'm a fucking survivor, and I'm just gonna, you know,
I'm gonna
push
make it work.
through. Yeah, I'm gonna make it work. And I just really needed to just be broken for a while. And then I was inspired by looking at this artwork, this style of artwork called kintsugi, where it's like broken ceramic being put back together with like gold or silver, platinum glue.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And it looks so cool. And I'm like, we're all human kintsugi, really, especially the older you get, like the more experiences you're going to have and the more things that you're going to need to transform from and use as fuel. Or I just realized that there are different paths that you can choose. Like you can choose to feel like you're a victim of things that have happened to you, or you can be like, these have been opportunities to propel me and to make me into a person that is interesting and gritty and
has life
trustworthy
experience
and seasoned and experienced. And like, I like that. I think that's cool. So yeah, like looking at myself as this thing, and just humans as these things that are, you know, fleshy mosaics of like, you know, just all the different things that have made us uniquely who we are.
And I don't think any woman I admire, and I imagine for you too, is it's like, I admire her because she's perfect.
No, not at all.
No one thinks that. But yet we
no
think
one
we have
thinks
to
that.
be that way.
You're so right. My favorite examples of, I don't know, I love like these documentaries that are coming out or these long form interviews that we get to see, because as I'm cooking or on the train or walking or doing anything, I like to listen to stuff. And like, I love interviews with Cher or Dolly Parton, or I watched the Martha Stewart documentary. And that was so cool because I'm like, I always knew she was dope, but then I'm like, oh, and we might not even, I don't know if we'd be friends. I don't know, but like, oh my God, you are so cool. And like, you completely own who you are.
Yep.
She knows she's rough around the edges. She knows she can be difficult,
a little mean.
Yeah. And like, I love to see that. I just think it was so cool. And her brand was being perfect.
Right.
But then she had to start everything from the ground up again. Right. And then say, I'm not perfect. I still like to look a certain way. She still likes her cashmere sweaters, and she want
my fresh flowers.
She wants her fresh flowers.
Yeah.
And she wants all the things, and her fresh blowouts. But I don't know. It's just so cool to see people at different ages and stages owning who they are, and I just love it. And I recently got to work with Cyndi Lauper, and she is in her early 70s, and
what a badass woman
get to be in close proximity to someone like her is, I don't think she knows how meaningful it is to me, because people have been like asking me about longevity when I have 20 years in the game. She has mad decades more in the game. You know what I mean? And that's longevity, and that's pivoting, and that's grit, and that's grace. And I just want to be around, women like that.
When I think about women in our community who like listen to the show, I think so many of them, are obviously trying to get better with money, but really they're just trying to be the best, baddest, foolish version of themselves, and understanding that like money is a tool to get there. So how has money been able to make you the best, baddest, fullest version of yourself?
Wow. I think that it provides freedom to be able to take chances sometimes.
Take risks, yeah.
Yeah, and to bet on yourself, to be generous. And that's a really great feeling, and being able to help, because I've been helped, and I will probably continue to need help. But, I think that it's really badass to give back and to be not so tight-handed. And I've learned that over the years, that my favorite people are, see that it's like with an open hand, and money comes and goes. But I didn't grow up with that mindset that money comes and goes. You know what I mean? And I think that's more of something that maybe wealthy people are taught to not fear it. And how has it made me a badass person? Yeah, I think that it just takes when you know that your basic needs are covered, you can move through the world with less fear.
You show up differently.
There's a confidence that you have when you know also that you've done it for yourself. And no one lives in a vacuum. Like I did this myself, but I've a lot of people along the way who've helped me and guided me, and taken a percentage from me, and because they're helping me and all that.
Yeah.
But no one can take that away from me. It makes me show up to relationships differently, and I'm really, really grateful for that.
That's the thing I realize is I don't ever have to stay in a situation that doesn't respect me, and that money allows me to exercise that self-respect.
Absolutely. That is such a great way of putting it.
Because it's like, okay, I'm on a bad date. Okay, I can just throw down my card and I never have to see this person again.
Totally.
And there's no conversation about it.
No.
Okay, I'm in a relationship for a long time. Sounds like, I can leave this apartment because I don't need to do this. I have my own money.
I respect myself enough to leave, and I have the
tool to do that. Right.
Yeah.
Because I can say, you know what, I don't want to be here and I know I deserve more. But if you don't have money.
Exactly. Yeah, you can have all the self-respect in the world, but you sometimes can't
Right.
physically.
And then it gets like gaslighty where you're just like, you're forced to be in a situation that you don't want to be in. Job, relationships, unsafe apartment.
Totally.
Bad record deal. Like
Yeah.
it's so crazy. And like, that's the feeling I want for every single woman on this planet. The ability to just go, you know what? That's not serving me anymore. And I don't have to sit and take it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love your mission so much and I believe in it
Thank
so
you.
much. And I just think that what you're putting out into the universe is so important for women to hear because
Thanks.
I think many of us also don't even know where to
start.
Yeah.
And
I was taught also that like ambition is like a dirty quality to have as a woman and that you should be grateful for what you have. And I think that that's something that, you know, we can actively work to question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the reasons I just absolutely love your work is I feel your energy of that. I can tell you've been through some shit and I can tell also that you're at the place where you're like, you know what, I'm doing things that feel really good for me. And I think women have to see that modeled to understand that they can do it for themselves too.
Yeah, and I needed to see it in other people too. And they were mirrors for me. And I hope it would bring me a lot of joy if I could be a mirror for someone else, that they can be inspired to go on their own journey because it's not going to look like mine and mine won't look like theirs, but that they will know that it's worth them finding out what it is that that lights them up and that hopefully they can make money while doing as well.
Yeah. So if we're going back in time to, I don't know, pick an age, young JoJo, what are we saying to her?
It gets better if you let it. Yeah. And I'm probably going to need to return to that many different times because I do believe that there will be really hard times to come.
Yeah.
It is a really hard, dark time for
rough
us as a
now.
collective.
Yep.
And I can only imagine what the next stretch of time is going to be like. So collectively and personally, we're all going to go through ups and downs. And I do believe that it's about finding and allowing for the little moments of joy when they come and really savoring them and being like, oh, wow, this feels so good right now. And knowing that dark times won't last forever. Even when you feel alone, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Those are the things I would say.
Okay, I have to ask you, this is my last question. I'm obsessed with riffs. I used to sit in my college dorm room and try to break them down and do it. What's your favorite riff, either that you have done and recorded or one that you're like, oh, I wish I had done that one?
Man, probably anything by Jasmine Sullivan is one of my favorites. She has this really beautiful one. I don't know what it's from. I think this is one that me and Stevie Mackey went through and like we were sitting in a car together and I think we put it online. It was like, I just think it's such a creative, like,
it is.
Let me try it again because I don't know if that was, that is so wild to me.
So good.
I would not think to come up with that. So Jasmine, you're the greatest.
Her riffs are so good. And then you just partnered. You just collabed with Tori Kelly as well, who's my other just, oh my gosh. And it was just like riff. And I'm like, my jaw's on the floor. It was so good.
Oh, well, that's how I feel when I'm with her. That I'm just like, I just love her so much as a person and I love her so much as a singer, as an artist. And we just had a really great time. And I think we've talked about it. It's healing for us to be together because coming up and being around the same age in the music industry, like it was like we weren't supposed to, and now we're like, we love each other.
Sisters got to work together.
It's cool, yeah.
Yeah. I was joking in the car over the Mama Knows Best riff. Do you know that one? Oh, I'm not going to do it because I'm going to butcher it.
What's that?
The ragdoll one. Do you know this? Hold on. I'm literally going to play it for you because it's insane.
Mama Knows Best.
Jessie J.
Okay.
Who's
absolutely
goddess. Underrated. Hold on. I'm going to find it. I'm going to play it for you because you'll love it.
So sick. I mean, everything she does is so clean so and
but Jasmine is the
dope.
Queen.
Yeah.
She did the one that I just wait for Christmas time because she did it with Pentatonic. She did the like Joyful, the Sister Act 2.
Oh, nice.
And her whole intro is just the most interesting choices.
That's what it is. I love those interesting choices.
It's so good. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Plug away, my friend. Tour, book, anything.
Yeah. My book, Over the Influence, is out now. You can listen on the audiobook. You can purchase it. And I yeah, I'd love to hear what you think of it once you check it out. And I'm going on tour, the Too Much to Say tour, February 22nd through April 10th. So come see me. We're hitting like 30 cities, and it's just going to be the best tour I've ever done. So we don't want to miss it. It's going to be great.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, my new EP, NGL, is out now.
Yeah.
Yeah, stream it. It's really good.
It is really good.